All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is the Tuesday, September 27th, 2016 edition of the broadcast. We thank you so much for being with us here for another edition of the show. Not a whole lot to talk about and get into here today. Obviously, all the news and everything is as it is this time of year, and as it is always whenever there's an election year. All the news is focusing around the phony divide and conquer left-right horse shit, and everything is focusing around that because they have to keep Americans obsessed with this horse shit in order to be able to keep them enthralled and believe that what they're being sold, the illusion they're being sold, is somehow real, and they somehow have a choice and a say. It's great. You know, I mean, a lot more people, I think, now, at least just from what I've seen, I think a lot of people with this election more than ever are more awake and more aware of the, a little bit more, I wouldn't say fully, but a little bit more than they have been in past elections, of the phony system, and that both candidates are bought and paid for and controlled by the same corporate interests and all that stuff. And that's great. I mean, I like to, whenever we get positives, which isn't very often, I like to, point out the positives and say that, that's a good thing. But at the same time, it hasn't made people any less obsessed with it. And people still are going to go vote. That's the problem. Even going to vote and putting in Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, whoever, is still giving them a verification that their system, their phony criminal system, is okay with you. And as soon as everybody says, we're not going to vote for anything, we're not going to participate, the system crumbles and they have nothing to rule over then. So that's the whole thing. If you really want to hit these people where they hurt, you show them in every way you can that we're not going to participate in their phony system. We're not going to vote for either one of their lame-ass candidates, because no matter who you vote for, they win. I mean, I've known this since I was in high school. I mean, I knew this stuff was phony even then. How much has changed, and how much has any candidate ever done? Nobody ever does anything for the better. Can you name me one candidate that's ever come in and done anything ever for the better? No. It's all about the continuation of the control system, and it's all about taking more and more rights and freedoms, and people having less freedoms. That's what it's all about every successive year, and making sure that people become incrementally poorer as the years go by, so that way they don't really notice it. If you have a depression or a huge recession or something where everybody notices it, then everything gets sluggish. But if you do it incrementally and slowly, tax people a little bit more here and there, raise the cost of living here and there a little bit incrementally, people don't freak out as much. But it's ridiculous. Anyway, all of that's ridiculous, and I'm sorry I even mentioned that much of it, but it's only because, there's not a lot to talk about. But we do have some stuff here, and we're also going to get into some reading for you. So thanks to everybody for being out there. Thank you for being with us here for another edition of the broadcast. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. Be sure you go there and get yourself a subscription to the archive so you can stay current with all of our daily shows and get the full shows, since we'll only be putting up partial shows on YouTube. And you'll also gain access to our new video content that's going to be slowly rolling out. We had our first video broadcast yesterday. We put the entire show up on YouTube, and it'll be up in the archive section thing for you to download as well soon, as well as this show will be a video cast for this show. For our members to download in the archives as well. $10 a month, $80 for a year, now until midnight on Friday for our 9-year anniversary fundraiser. You can get yourself a lifetime archive membership and any download from the download store you want for your $100 contribution by midnight on Friday. We have $1,000 left on our operating cost goal. We have to reach 100% of that by midnight on Friday. So please go and make your contribution and get in now on that deal. You're not going to beat that. I mean, we sell a 1-year membership for $80. So, for $100, you're going to get a lifetime membership. You won't have to worry about your membership. You'll get all the new content and everything we're going to be slowly trickling out and putting up there in the daily audio archives as well. So you're going to be getting double the content for the already existing membership price. And again, we have a giant mega prize pack available for the highest contributor. We don't have anybody that's a contender yet, so we need somebody. Let's get this competition going. Somebody get it started off for us. And who knows, you might be the grand prize winner if you contribute the largest amount. At this point, a $400 or $500 contribution would be in the running for first place. So definitely go and hit that up. Go to my website. The contribution banner is there. We'll also put it in the links section of this video, since the partial show of this show will be up on YouTube. And again, for you YouTubers out there, we will still be continuing to put up stuff that'll only be on YouTube and various stuff. We're not going to abandon YouTube, so don't worry about that. As I stated in yesterday's show, you're still going to get content. But if you want to get the full shows and you want to get the full video shows and everything, we've got our new fancy green screen here behind us. So that's the way to do it. Get yourself a membership. It's $10 a month, $80 for a year, but that $100 lifetime thing is the best deal going right now. And I want to encourage everybody to get one of those this week while you can. Scrape the money together, get that, because it's a fantastic deal. We're not going to be offering those again for a while at that price. Boy, I tell you, I meant to mention this yesterday. Been 9 years since we've been on air. Boy, I tell you what, I interviewed a lot of people back in the day. I haven't done any interviews in a long time. Mainly because, and people ask me about that all the time, well, if there was anybody I wanted to interview, I'd get them on. I mean, that's the thing about it. I've never had any problem getting to interview people I wanted to interview. Problem is, there was nobody I want to interview anymore. Believe me, if there was somebody I really wanted to interview, I'd try to get them on and do everything I could. But honestly, there's not really anybody out there anymore. And with some of the people I interviewed in the past, even though it was, it was really just a byproduct of where I was at that time and didn't really know better. But boy, oh boy, I was looking back on it. Jeez Louise. Boy, I interviewed all the top shills back in my day, didn't I? Jeez Louise. All of them. Go look at the list of people that I've interviewed. Good God. I interviewed all the top shills back in the day, especially when I was first going. I mean, run the list. I mean, I interviewed Luke Radowski one time, and David Icke, and Jim Mars a couple of times, and Chris Everard, and Michael Desarian, and who else? Lots of people, man. Try to remember. What was the guy's name? I tell you, the one show that I wish I still had, even though, I've seen some of his connections now to some of the more white supremacist connections. But I'll tell you, there's just nobody has this audio anywhere. I keep thinking maybe it'll show up or pop up somewhere, but I don't think anybody has this anymore. I think any of the computers that used to be on are long gone. But I did interview Eustace Mullins very shortly before he passed away. If you don't know who Eustace Mullins is, he wrote the book The Secrets of the Federal Reserve and Curse of Canaan and a bunch of books. He was real old, and he was in an old folks' home when I interviewed him, but it was a great interview, and he was lively, and he was happy to tell us about Robert Welch, who he knew, using the startup money that he got when he sold the Welch Candy Company to the Rockefellers, to use that to start up the John Birch Society. I mean, he was just happy to talk about it, So, and that was shortly before he passed away, I think about a year or so. So, Eustace Mullins, even though I, some of the stuff I've seen with some of his connections now, especially with like American Free Press and the Liberty Lobby and all that, which I've exposed to CIA front organizations, it was still, that's still something I'm glad I got to do, because there aren't very many people that can say they interviewed Eustace Mullins, and I did. I, in fact, did. So, who else? It's just, a lot of the people that I interviewed back, I liked them at the time or whatever, but they've kind of come to show me their cards and their connections at this point. I'll tell you somebody else that I interviewed. that I just absolutely can't stand now. William Henry. Oh my God. That fucking guy. I tell you what. Man. I mean, he's put out some legit info, but his big kick now is this. It's just so new age, lame. Now he's trying to convince people that, the Anunnaki or all these things. Oh, they're angels. Everything is about angels with him now. Oh, angelic light beings that are coming to help us ascend into heaven. Bullshit, motherfucker. Go and sell that shit somewhere else. And he's another one of these guys. And look, I'm all about spirituality and spiritualism. I'm not about religion. I've talked about this before. But, these people who take the information and they take it and they twist it to fit their own personal agenda. And, he's all over ancient aliens and all that. That's one. I'll tell you an interesting one that I did was with William Bramley, who wrote the book Gods of Eden. And William Bramley is an interesting character, and he's come up on my radar again recently. And I was going to have a little part about William Bramley in the Spellcasters, but I didn't want people to get confused with, because there's so much in there that I was kind of showing the connections with Scientology and the CIA and Truth Movement people and stuff. But William Bramley's interesting because his real name is not William Bramley. That's not even a real name. And lo and behold, he wrote this book, The Gods of Eden. Well, his real name is actually Tor Dalin. Toredalin. Tor Dalin or Tor Dalin. I don't know how you really pronounce that, but so the book was published in 1989. This was a pen name, and it's presumed that he picked this name based on William Bramley, who played the part of, I guess he played the part of William Bramley in a Star Trek episode, and he died in 1985. And under the name Tor Dalin, he was a member of Scientology. Tor Dalin left the Church of Scientology in the early 1980s. 14 years later, an HCO interbellation order, that's some Scientology gobbledygook word there, interbellation order was put on him, which is a Scientology justice action. Here it is, Executive Director, June 2nd, 1995. To all HAS SLH LRH, which is L. Ron Hubbard comms, all DSAs. This is basically an internal document from Scientology here. Corporate Liaison Office. Suppressive acts, acts of suppression. And it says, there have been reports that a book entitled The Gods of Eden, which contains offbeat materials, was being read and promoted by a few Scientologists who were not fully informed about the materials or the author. This book includes data and concepts taken from Scientology without authorization, such as conditions, the third-party law, and religion with graduated steps. Now, this is fascinating. Now, I did a reading, actually, there's an audiobook reading of me. You can buy it in our download store. It's only $10, and you get the bonus William Bramley interview I did in the pack. It's a 2-pack. If you haven't heard that, go to the download shop, get yourself a copy of that. And if you haven't seen Spellcasters, download a copy of that too while you're there. And I started thinking about that. I was thinking, well, wow. So that's really full circle. That proves 100%, ladies and gentlemen, what I talk about in the Spellcasters, and how much of it is the connections with Sitchin, and how when you get to the upper levels of Scientology, it's all basically Anunnaki and all that stuff. That's really their biggest secret. Well, if you remember Gods of Eden, if you remember my book reading of that, if you didn't, go back and listen to it again. Now it all makes sense. Now it makes sense why all that information lines up so much with so many other things, like the Lost Book of Enki and the rest of the stuff. And I read it right around that time. That's why. But they consider him what they call a squirrel. And a squirrel is somebody who, that's a Scientology term, for someone who leaves the church and then takes information they learned. And essentially that after researching this and looking into this, this is what it looks like William Bramley, Tor Dalin, whatever, this is what he did. He basically took all the stuff that he learned in Scientology, quit, and then wrote Gods of Eden. So again, I didn't put that. I wasn't going to put that in the film, but I thought people might misconstrue it, because I'm middle of the road on him. Like, I mean, from all intents and purposes, I can't find anything that indicates that he was working for anybody, an alternative group or somebody like that. It really does appear that he indeed was basically just a regular guy who was in Scientology. I can imagine this probably has happened a lot. And eventually got up to the higher levels, started learning what it was about, and went, wait a second here. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. But it says, the author, William Bramley, whose real name is Tor Dalin, is an ex-Scientologist and former staff member. Oh, he was a staff member, too. That means he was high level. Dalin was also a member of a declared suppressive squirrel group for over 2 years and admitted to being in Scientology for the purpose of obtaining information from the church to give it to the squirrel group. He has a track of destructive behavior causing interpolation by spreading false and electrifying information on church lines, for which he was previously labeled PTS Type 3. Dalin requested to be removed from staff because, in his own words, he was, quote, insane and a danger to the group, and had evil intentions towards fellow Scientologists and staff members. He then left in the early 1980s as real Scientologists wouldn't let him carry on spreading his electrifying activities and information to other Scientologists. In March 1994, over a decade after leaving the church, he wrote and distributed a disavowal of the Church of Scientology, in which he attempted to spread further anathema and false information. I like how they just make up their own words. I like how this is what constitutes a suppressive act in Scientology. Publicly disavowing Scientology or Scientologists in good standing with Scientology, that's a suppressive act. By simply saying, I don't want to have anything to do with these motherfuckers anymore, that's considered a suppressive act. That's how fucking batshit these people are. In HCO PL7, God, they use all this gobbledygook terminology and anything. That goes right back to L. Ron Hubbard. He was the one that instituted all this gobbledygook language. Believe me, I've poured over a lot of this stuff. It's ridiculous. February 1965, Keeping Scientology Working, L. Ron Hubbard states, quote, I recall one student who was squirreling on an academy course and running a lot of offbeat whole track on other students after course hours. The academy students were in a state of electrification. See that? See, that's from 1965. The other stuff was using the same terminology, electrifying people, squirreling away. That's part of the brainwashing and the mind control. They teach their followers to speak in this L. Ron Hubbard speak, this language, and it just becomes a part of their lexicon to the point where eventually they don't even really know they're doing it.